Welcome to today's webinar, the second part of the series, Tactical Information You Need Right Now, Throughout and As You Emerge from COVID-19, Marketing Tactical Information You Need to Sustain. I'd now like to introduce Risa Goldman, President and Founder of Goldman Marketing Group. Thank you, Risa, for joining us again, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dawn, and welcome everyone. I'm happy to be back. I hope a lot of you caught part one of this webinar series, which was last Thursday, which was the immediate marketing information that you needed to do right now. Well, I guess right then. And now today we're going to talk a little bit more about what information you need to sustain, mostly in terms of driving new revenue streams. So first of all, this is just a little overview about me. I have over 18 years of experience in healthcare marketing, and specifically most all of my experience has been in the dermatology and aesthetic space for everything from small single doctor private practices all the way up to private equity group practices with multiple locations to pharmaceutical companies. So I started with this last time, but I want to put it in here again for those of you that are new. I really do think that one day we're going to look back and we're going to all say, we lived through the coronavirus outbreak of 2020. So while all day long we hear about all the losses, there is opportunity as well. And although healthcare is considered an exempt sector nationwide, everything has changed and all of us are taking some sort of hit. It's very important that right now you innovate and adapt your services and business model as quickly as possible. And if you do so correctly, I really truly believe that many of those innovations will become permanent aspects of your new business and possibly new revenue streams for the long run. So I'm going to try and tell you about a few of those today. And to cue it up, one more little quote: start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible. Suddenly, you're doing the impossible. So here's just a little overview on the webinar series. One of them was last week. Today we're talking about how to sustain, and then next Thursday will be part 3, which is more about how to recover once we all go back to our new normal, whatever that might look like. So today the agenda, I'm going to start with a little overview, and then how about innovating new revenue streams, telemedicine, e-commerce, online skincare sales, a webinar series, a subscription or membership service, and website updates. So at a glance, a lot of decisions have to be made right now when just considering new revenue streams. For example, is the initiative only temporary or could it be used for the long run? How much do you want to spend to make right now? Some initiatives take some upfront money to get them up and running, which may be a consideration, especially depending on how long the initiative will be able to last. I think it's very important that in every initiative you're doing that you're focusing on retention and loyalty and not focusing on short-term revenue. And you really need to be looking at your bottom line. Some of the reimbursements for telemedicine are so low that by the time you get done with the technology and the staffing, it's unfortunate, but it sometimes may not even be worth it financially. So I think with every innovation you look at, you need to make sure that it is going to be a positive impact on your bottom line. So crisis can lead to opportunity. For example, new revenue streams, improved technology, to expand your scope of service, and to help you diversify yourself as a business. So let's go right into these new revenue streams. In the short term, some great revenue streams are things like getting telemedicine set up or virtual consultations, getting e-commerce skincare sales, starting a webinar series, keeping your website very up to date, and potentially even taking prepayments for future services or in the form of a gift card. I'm going to go into each of these more in depth and further along in this presentation. For more long-term revenue streams, you could consider things like a subscription service, affiliate marketing, content creation, and website improvements. I've categorized these under long-term because they take longer to get set up and running, and some of them have a more long-term profit, structure and ROI before it actually starts coming, whereas some of the short-term solutions can drive revenue sooner. So let's first start talk about telemedicine. I imagine if I was to ask you right now, I would hope almost all of you have already set it up some form of telemedicine. I wish I could see you raising your hands. But just in case, I'll go over a little bit of the basics. So the first thing you need to make sure, and even if you have it set up already, is touch base with your medical malpractice carrier. Make sure that you are covered for telemedicine. And if not, I would add that on as quickly as possible. You want to also reach out to any of your insurance companies that you work with and make sure to look through your contracts about your negotiated rates. You want to confer with a HIPAA advisor to make sure how you're actually executing the telemedicine consultations or appointments is fully HIPAA compliant, especially since a lot of us are doing these from home right now and not, on the servers and the password protected Wi-Fi's that we may have set up in our office space. Basically, the prep work is to just ensure that you are set up for success in the long run. So how about software? What do you pick? There are so many softwares out there. I get this question almost every day, and my answer is always the same. You first need to reach out to your practice management or EMR software and ask them what options are synced together. It will make your life a lot easier if it is already going to be synced in with your system. Next, you want to consider the insurance reimbursement. Do you need to do any training or give any new codes for your billing staff? Is there anything that they need to plan in terms of how to bill, where to bill? The systems might be a little bit different than you're used to with in-office visits. So definitely, I encourage you to work with your billing and revenue cycle management teams. They are very much on top of this. And then telemedicine, I think it's also important to think, will this be something you're going to consider keeping for the long run? If it may be, or if you're sure it will be, then I think it's worth it to invest a little bit more time, money, and energy getting the foundation set up correctly, as opposed to if it's just going to be a short-term solution. And I'll talk about that on this next slide with marketing. Also, how about telemedicine for cosmetic consultations or cash visits if you are not accepting insurance? Consider, will it be a cost that will be applied towards a future treatment? And if you are going to let people do that, what is the expiration date? I've had some clients saying 6 months from the date of the virtual consultation. Others are just saying through the end of 2020. Whatever it is, it's okay. You should just have something clearly defined and thought through ahead of time. So now training. It is time to create a cheat sheet and some training tools for your office and staff. I would actually have every single one of your staff members do a mock telemedicine visit themselves, from going on your website or scheduling it, however the scheduling is done, through getting in a reminder, through trying to sign in on their personal equipment, ideally, and actually trying to complete the virtual consult. This will help them make sure that they fully understand it. So when they are explaining it to patients, maybe over the phone or over email, they are going to actually have firsthand knowledge. I think it's very helpful to create a cheat sheet or an overview for patients, something that they can see that you can send them. It will definitely help avoid a lot of questions. And you could also consider including some sort of video or screenshot images for patients. A lot of them are not very technologically savvy, so it's a little overwhelming. If you send them a Zoom link, they try and click it, and oh my gosh, it actually is making them download something, or it's asking them to get an app, and then they don't know their app store password, or whatever the situation might be. That's why I think as much of the cheat sheets and overview you can create ahead of time and then email to them before the visit so they can be prepped and ready to go. It'll make your life a lot easier and help them be more efficient. However, before you start hiring a video crew and creating some fancy video, you definitely need to think through my question from the last slide. Is this going to be a short-term thing? I know none of us know, but is this going to be a 3-week, a 2-month thing, or is this going to keep for the long run? For the long run, it's probably worth investing to have a really nice video and more educational tools. The goal is to make it as simple and streamlined as possible. No matter how tech savvy you are, you have to think about if you are giving this to your mother, your grandmother, someone like that, and think about how would they be able to do this from home with no one to come and help them, no one to walk them through this. And, I also think it's important to be patient. Technology can be frustrating for some, maybe even many. So just be prepared to be a little bit patient. Sometimes I think it can be nice to actually have one of your staff members start the call with the patient to make sure that they're on, that they can see you, you can see them, the audio's working, kind of troubleshooting the small issues so that by the time they hand it over to you, you're not the one teaching the patient, you know, where to go to close a screen or, you know, why the internet isn't working well. So let's talk about how to market it. You want to definitely update the call to action buttons on your website. Here you can see on this website, which is not centered because the website comes over here. But anyways, we changed the button at the top, you know, to book online. And right here, you know, for booking a consult online, we changed it to new patient consult virtual. So it's very clear. If anyone's wondering, this is actually the next patient is this platform that we utilized inside of this website. You want to also add some education and information to your website. It could be those cheat sheets that we were just speaking of or the videos. You also want to update it in your social media bios and your links. For example, on your Instagram bio, you might have something that says, you know, call to schedule. Maybe change that to, you know, virtual consultations now available, or virtual consultations with a little arrow pointing down right to the phone number or the website to click. And then you also want to add telemedicine as a feature on Yelp, Google, and RealSelf, who by now have all rolled out little COVID-19 banners that can be at the top of your profile to give updates. And this would be a perfect update to put on there. Some of them also have a feature where you can check off a box if you're offering virtual visits, which can hopefully remain a permanent part of your listing. But if not, just remember that all of these websites and platforms that you're updating, make sure to make notes so that when this is all over, if you're going to go back to not offering telemedicine, you need to go back and revert all of those changes. So definitely keep a list of everything you're doing. And mostly you want to get the word out as quickly as possible. And to get the word out, you know, you can use emails, you can use social, of course, on your website, maybe even a pop-up on your website, whatever it might be. You just want to make sure everyone knows about it and that your staff is also speaking about it on the phone. And again, if anyone has questions while I'm talking, I have it open right here, so feel free to pop them in and I'd be happy to help. So now with telemedicine, how do you monitor the results? Well, I would ask someone on your team ideally to give you a daily and ideally a daily, but definitely a weekly report on the virtual visits and essential in-office visits if you are still offering any of them. You know, a daily breakdown is great. Today, there was 1 essential in-office visit and 4 virtual consultations. And if you get that report every day, you can start using some graphs to kind of show you, is it growing? Is it staying stable? Is it declining? And then you can adjust the marketing efforts accordingly to make sure, ideally, that you are growing and doing more and more of these virtual appointments. It's also important to review the cancellations. Sometimes when people are not driving in, I've heard and noticed from a lot of clients that people are more likely potentially to cancel and consider it not as big of maybe an inconvenience, or they're not feeling as bad about canceling. Also, same with no-shows. Maybe they don't cancel, they just no-show. Is this an issue? If so, maybe look into how you are prepping patients ahead of time for the visits and how the appointment confirmations are going as well. I also would review with your telemedicine visits, what's the breakdown between new versus existing patients? It might shed a lot of light if you find out that actually it's bringing in a lot of new patients versus just providing support for your existing patients. And if it is bringing in a lot of new patients, is it just now because of the COVID situation that they're looking at their skin or their wrinkles and they're interested all of a sudden? Or maybe are those patients the people that wanted telemedicine all along, and maybe they work during business hours, so it was too hard for them to get in with you beforehand, but now that it's virtual, they can do it on their lunch break. And then if you can, you should track every single one of your telemedicine virtual consultations through in your system to see, are they actually going to book a procedure and come in and spend money in the practice at a later date? That's truly the ROI, because as much as we want to provide education and support, of course, we are still for-profit businesses. So the hope is that these people will come back to see you. You will keep them as retained patients for the long run, and they will follow through with the treatments that you are recommending. So the rule of thumb is basically to track, learn, and then adjust. And don't be afraid. You don't need to get it perfect the first time. As long as you're tracking, you're learning, and you continue adjusting, it's just continual operational improvements, which is a positive for every aspect of the business. So any questions on telemedicine?
I received a question, Risa. I heard that new patient visits won't be reimbursed.
Is this a new patient medical or cosmetic? I guess if you're saying reimbursed, you might be meaning medical. And I think that this is a little bit different depending on your contracts with the insurance carriers. And I would speak with your, your billing team and your revenue cycle management companies about that. They'll know more than me. But from my understanding, I believe that they can be reimbursed. It's just that the reimbursement is rather low, especially compared to what we're used to seeing with in-office visits. Any other questions?
There is one, but I think you might cover it later, but I'll give it to you now. We had a handful of patients asking for refunds for prepaid laser packages. How would you handle this?
Absolutely. That is definitely coming up across the board. I think it's hard. I mean, this is not just in our industry, it's happening everywhere. People are canceling and, in a perfect world, people would keep the credit with us and just reschedule. That's of course what we would all love. And that's what, the airlines are trying to force and so many people. But in truth, this is not a short-term game. This is a long-term game for your practice. And I would refund the money. I don't think it's worth potentially ruining a patient for life over this. A lot of people are really struggling right now and cash is tight. So, if, refunding a small amount of money, I know it hurts for you, but, it might be worth it in the long run. Each patient, you have to remember not just the value of that treatment, but the value of that patient over their lifespan, because they should all be patients for life. And you think about how many patients they could potentially send to you, at minimum 4, and then those 4 more. So when you think about it in those terms, reimbursing hundreds or even a couple $1,000s is probably worth it for your reputation and long-term success of the practice. Is there any others? And Dawn, I didn't see these questions in my panel. I don't know.
I don't know why. I just had a couple more.
Okay.
What is the range of charges for cosmetic consultations virtually? Can it be the same as in-office cosmetic consultation?
That's a very good question and something that a lot of people are talking about right now. I think there are a couple different ways to do it. On the one hand, you should consider what you do in your office. If you're charging in your office, I think it definitely makes sense to continue charging for online. I do always like, even in office or online, for any money to actually be applicable for them to be able to apply towards a treatment. That's my personal recommendation. But, say in your office you offer free cosmetic consultations, then you might actually consider charging for the virtual consultations, because it is a little bit different. In the office, if you offer a free consultation, there's a chance that they could right then and there say, yes, let's do Botox, and you do it during that visit. I'm sure a fair number of your cosmetic consults right there and then can get something done. Whereas a virtual consultation, obviously nothing can get done right then and there. So that's why, to make sure that it is a good use of your time, I do think it is appropriate to charge. I have some offices that maybe some people are charging and maybe a PA or an esthetician is complimentary. I think you should also look and do some secret shopper calls to the competition in your area and see what all of them are doing, see what the charges are, so that you can price yourself where you want to be in the marketplace. Do you want to be the highest? Do you want to be in the middle? Do you want to be the lowest? What is it? So I think in terms of how much to charge, I'm sure that's probably the next question on your mind. That is a good question. I think I've seen people charging anywhere from $50 up to $250 for a virtual consultation. Well, maybe starting at free, up to $250 for a virtual consultation. So I think, probably in the $50 to $250 range, depending on where you're located and what your competitors are doing, is probably appropriate. Also taking into consideration what you normally charge for a consultation.
That's all the questions right now.
Okay, great. So we're gonna move on to online skincare sales. Right now, I wish I could see some raises of hands for how many people are doing this already, but I definitely think it is an opportunity right now and also for the long run. So there are 3 options of how to sell skincare online. The first one is going to be the simplest, well, in a sense, is to just ship from your office. The second one is going to be to ship direct from the manufacturer. And the third one is going to be to use a third-party seller. So let me break down all 3 of those for you to try and help guide you which decision is the best for you, and then to move forward with implementing it. So how about shipping from the office? For this concept, there would probably be a website form where they would email over a request. You could take the credit card information on the phone, so you don't have to make your whole website e-commerce overnight. You could just have a website form where they put in their name, phone, address, and then list out what products they would like. You call them and take the credit card information and finish processing it over the phone. And then you would ship the product from the office. Of course, while shipping the product from the office, you want to make sure that you are, doing safe handling of all the products, wearing gloves and the packaging and shipping it off. So let's talk about the pros of this. The pros, you can easily control the entire process because it's all being done under your roof. Also, it can be highly personalized. You can include things like a personal handwritten card in each shipment. Sorry we couldn't see you in person. Hope this brings a little light to, your day. You also can offer whatever promotions you want, and you're already offering under the sun at your office since you're charging them yourself. You could do any promotions easily. And also, any combination of products can be ordered. Maybe they want one product from SkinMedica, and they want Latisse, and then they want the Clarisonic brush. You could pick those 3 products, put them in a box, and ship it to them. But what are the cons? Well, the cons are that you have to house all that inventory on your own. You have to deal with the fulfillment, the packaging and shipping. How are you going to handle returns? It's extremely high touch, i.e. you need to take a credit card over the phone, you need to physically process it. So it's very time intensive for your people. And it's also not very scalable because of how high touch it is. But I guess another pro would be that it's probably the quickest to set up because you could go live same day with this, absolutely. Were there any questions about shipping from the office?
Not so far, Risa.
Okay. All right. So the next one is shipping direct from the manufacturer. All of you have probably gotten some notifications from a number of skincare companies that they are able to set up a custom e-commerce website just for you. Here is one. This is a quick example, that they set up for this practice. For Alastin, you can go through, view the products. It uses their platform. They set everything up entirely. The patients will go through and order online, and the product will ship direct from the manufacturer to the patient. So what are the pros and cons of that? Well, the pros, there's also little to no setup needed. Mostly probably your sales reps will help with a lot of this. You might just need to give them your logo, and branding. There's also the pro is that there's less touch points for patients. Less people are touching the product. It's not going from the manufacturer to your office staff, to the mailman, to their house. Now it's just going straight from the manufacturer to the mailman to their house. And the other pro is that there's no hassle for the office. You're essentially cutting out your office entirely. So it's no sweat on anyone's back or extra workload, especially if you're down with the number of staff right now. But what are the cons? The cons are that each store is going to be exclusive to one brand. So to use my scenario, if someone wants to order a little SkinMedica, a little Clarisonic, and a little Latisse, they might have to go to 2 or 3 different online stores to place those orders as opposed to all in one. And not every brand is offering this. So depending on what skincare you sell, it might not even be available with every manufacturer. The second con is there's really no personalization since the packages are not being shipped from you. You can't really control, what it looks like or how it's packaged or how it's going to look upon delivery. And then the con is that it's also a possible reduction in the product profit margin because the manufacturer is likely going to take a cut from this. Some of the manufacturers are offering to do this and they will replace the product in your inventory at full value. Some of them are offering, to just take a percentage or send you a percentage. So it's a little different with each one. But I hope that helps lays out some of the pros and cons for shipping from the manufacturer. And unless there's any questions on that one, let's talk about a possible third option, which is a third-party seller. So this would be using a third-party seller. This one that I have up here on the screen right now is called Regimen Pro, which was actually developed by one of your own dermatologist, Dr. Patricia Ferris. But this is an example of an external seller that they set up a custom e-commerce website just for you. Your patients would order online and the product would ship direct from the manufacturer. So quite similar to the second option of the manufacturer website. However, there are some more pros, well, similar pros to the same side as the manufacturers. But on the cons, you're exclusive to the brands offered by the seller. A lot of them are offering, you know, hundreds of options, but it's still not all of them. They're unable to ship any private label products because, of course, those are personal for your practice. The amount of personalization that's offered in the emails and the branding of the website platform is also it's minimal. You're only allowed to personalize the aspects that they have available for. And also, you know, of course, they're going to take a small cut, so there's a possible reduction in product profit margin. But I guess the pro for this, outside of just doing direct from the manufacturer, would be that it's very likely that the patient could order multiple brands at the same time, which is nice for them. And then another pro of just this one example that I showed you, Regimen Pro, is that they also have an auto ship option, which I'm a really big fan of for residual ongoing revenue for your practice. So I love that. So some special considerations. Is skincare an essential service? Should people even be ordering skincare right now, or should we kind of wait because a lot of us are in the peak, you know, now or right about coming up? You know, is this really even something we should be doing? I mean, that's a personal question to ask yourself. You know, of course, no one is going to die or get hurt if they don't use their skincare. However, there is a long way of, you know, a lot of mental health concerns right now and a lot of stress and anxiety. And for a lot of people, keeping up with their routines, whether that be their skincare or anything in life, and keeping themselves looking nice, you know, getting up in the morning and still getting dressed can really just help make you look good. So a lot of people would say that the skincare really does help them out. And if you don't ship to them, they might go to the 100,000 other stores online that will. So you have to consider those options. You
Risa,
also have to, yeah.
do you have any contact information for any of the third-party sellers for online sales?
Yes, I would be happy to. I think their website is, I could type it in here maybe to the chat, and you could type in, I think if you see that, maybe you could send that out, Dawn.
Yes, I can.
I also will put my email on some of these slides, and you are welcome to email me and I could connect you with them as well. I have no, you know, financial interest in it at all. So the next special consideration is, you know, the special handling for the products from your office. How will your staff be handling them? Who's touching them? What are they wearing? Gloves, you know, all of these sorts of things. How to advertise this properly. Again, going along with the first point, is this an essential service? I think you also need to be very smart and selective with kind of the verbiage that you use to promote this and to get it out there in the world to advertise it. And that it's not just that you're trying to get revenue, but that, you know, you want to keep supporting your patients during this difficult time. And if, you know, they're running out of skincare and if they really need a refill, you would like to be able to help them buy X, Y, or Z. And then if you are going to set up some sort of e-commerce site, depending if it's on your platform or on someone else's, how about selling gift cards? Is that of interest? You know, just something to think about. Also, I guess I didn't mention a fourth option because it isn't really a short-term strategy, but how about setting up your own actual e-commerce store? That is also an option. And, you know, marketing companies, you know, out there, of course, can do them. You can try on your own on something like Shopify or WooCommerce. So that is a fourth option. And then also, if you are setting up e-commerce or, you know, possible ways on your website, do you want to allow people to prepay for any future treatments? I'm seeing a lot of people right now offering a discount if you purchase, you know, fillers to use for the remainder of the year, for example. And that's also a consideration of, you know, is that to help with your cash flow now? Are you just trying to support your patients? Because of course, you know, discounting your services, you know, if it's not something you normally do, you don't want to fall into a hole of now that becoming kind of a new expectation or a norm, or you know, lowering the perceived value of your work at all. So if you do that, you just have to be really careful of the way you craft your message. So any more questions before I move on to webinar series?
No, not at this time.
Okay, perfect. So this is the one I'm actually most excited to share with you all. I think that a webinar series right now is a really great way to live in our new kind of adapted virtual practice space. So what does a high-level strategy look like? First, we're going to plan it. We're going to set it up. We're going to advertise it. We're going to execute it. And then we're going to follow through. Now, it might seem overwhelming and like there's a lot to do to get this going, but I got to tell you, it really is not as difficult as you might think. And if you use someone that has set these up before or is comfortable using the softwares, it's something that can be done very quickly, for sure, within a matter of a couple of days. And you should think of it almost like an in-office event or a lunch and learn. If you've had those in your offices before, think of it like that. You're just doing it virtually now. So let's talk about planning. What kind of things should you think about? First, your strategy. What kind of topics do you want to cover? Will it be a presentation format only with an open Q&A at the end? Will it just be an open Q&A? Will the topics be high level? Like one topic is going to be all about injectables and another one is all about lasers. Or are they going to be more specific? Like, at home considerations to help with your skin or something like that. How about scheduling? Is this something you should do daily, weekly, bi-weekly? I've tested a little bit of both, and I feel that either weekly or 2 to 3 times a week is probably the ideal number. How about the best time of day? Do your patients want to potentially do this at 12 p.m., at 6 p.m., at 9 a.m.? What is it? I mean, we can guess all day long, but my recommendation would be to potentially ask on social media. There's a lot of great polling features in the stories on Instagram, for example. You also could consider asking some of your, VIP patients what they think and what they would prefer and what would work best for them to use as a guide, but ultimately to establish some sort of time of day. And then how about who's going to be the speakers? Are you going to use your own providers only? Do you want to bring in any outside experts? By an outside expert, for example, perhaps one of your friends or colleagues is a, motivational speaker, or they, are a, can provide ideas for at-home exercise or meditation, or how to handle this with kids. It could be even something non-related, but primarily you should probably start first with your own providers. You have your own experts already in-house. And then you need to come up with a little timeline. What's your launch date going to be, and what will the timeline be? So kind of map out on a calendar, this day we're going to do a webinar, this day we're going to do a webinar. That means we have to start promoting it here, here, and here. Afterwards, we'll send a follow-up here and so forth, and kind of map it out visually, I think is very important. And then you want to practice a run through. You want to literally do one with some of your staff on your own so that you can kind of get out any kinks or any difficulties, especially on the technology side, because you want to make sure that you're very confident. So when you go and you're actually in front of the camera, that you are not, concerned with what's working and what's not, and that you can just speak very comfortably, just as you would in a regular patient consultation or treatment. So the next is, how do you set this up? Well, my recommendation would be to use a professional account with Zoom. It's probably the easiest and the most user-friendly that I have come across. There are other platforms that I can recommend that you can check out, but I don't think you need to reinvent the wheel here. I would just use Zoom. When you set up Zoom, there's a little add-on for webinars. It's $40 a month. Will get you up to 100 attendees. And then I think an extra $50 a month gets you up to 500. So it's very affordable. You want to add some branding elements to the setting tab inside of Zoom, so it has your logo and your banner, which you can kind of see over here. You want to add a description. This is the description, for example, for this specific webinar series. You want to set up some auto reminders and follow-up inside of Zoom. They already have this all set up. So once people register, you can tell Zoom, remind them 1 day before, 1 hour before. Here's what I want the message to say. Here's what I want to go out after the webinar is over. You can set that all up and Zoom can automate it for you. You definitely want to make a custom registration page. You can see the top of it right here, but you come here and start putting in your first name, your last name, and your email, and click to register. It's pretty much just as easy as your registration was to register for this webinar today. Review all your settings for sure to kind of see what they're going to get after they register, what that email is going to look like. Consider playing around with adding some polls and a post-webinar survey. These are like some maybe 2.0 features that you don't need to do at first, but they're nice to do. And then again, keep doing this practice run through to play around with all these features and make sure that during it you're going to be able to see the Q&A, you know, and for example, unlike me right now, and that you'll be able to kind of, you know, mute people or see how many people are attending and handle it all yourself with confidence without having to kind of have hiccups and stressful situations while you're live. So then let's talk about advertising. How are we going to advertise this? So this is an example of an email blast that we have sent out. This email blast campaign, you want to have a series, kind of a launch email to announce why you're doing it, which is kind of this little paragraph up here. If anyone wants to email me after this, my email's down here in the corner. I'd be happy to send you some of the e-blasts that we've done if you want to mimic any of them. And then you also are probably going to want to send out an email blast before each individual webinar to kind of remind them and be more specific of that topic. And maybe also a final reminder, you know, 1 hour before, a few hours before, depending on what settings you're setting up inside of Zoom. If you have the ability to do a text message campaign, text messages are often even more successful than emails. Social media, of course, you want to be promoting it on and absolutely throw some money behind your posts on Facebook and Instagram to boost them, even if it's just $5 or $10. And then also, how about some talking points for your phones, for the people on the phones, like your staff? They need to be able to tell patients about this when they're calling in. So I would write out some real quick talking points for them so that they fully understand it and have some quick answers to give to common questions. Then you also could take some time to make some outbound calls for those patients that had to have a postponed appointment. If they need a treatment done, of course, this won't help with the webinar, but at least it will give them something as a resource. You know, hey, I know you were planning on coming in a couple weeks and we had to postpone it till 2 months from now for your laser treatment. But I wanted to let you know that Dr. So-and-so is actually hosting a webinar in a couple days about a very similar treatment. I thought you might want to tune in and watch to just learn more. And you know, it's a nice way to reach out and keep in contact with people.
Risa, why is a webinar superior to an Instagram Live post?
So an Instagram Live and Facebook Live are also great tools, and I highly recommend you do them as well. A webinar is a little bit different. It's a little bit more formal, and it's something where you can show a presentation at the same time as you're speaking, like I'm doing right now. I couldn't be doing this exactly on a Facebook or Instagram Live because I couldn't be showing slides. They also don't have, you know, as many of the features set up, for example, the Q&A and the chat. And if you use Zoom, you can stream right to Facebook Live from the Zoom software. So theoretically, you're doing both at the same time. They don't have a sync connection with Instagram yet, but they do with YouTube and they do with Facebook. So that makes it easy. And then if you want to get even fancier, you can use another kind of a streaming service, like Restream is one, and that can connect in with YouTube and push it out to, you know, I think they have like 50 different platforms to push live to simultaneously from the Zoom software to start with. So I hope that answers your question. And then my last bullet point here is you want to highlight on the website, you know, this webinar series, if you're running it, you know, in the homepage pop up the same way you're advertising the telemedicine, virtual consults, and the e-commerce for skincare. This would kind of, whatever you're doing, if you do this, this is another thing to let patients know about so they can take advantage. Okay, here's a couple more screenshots of kind of some of the settings inside of the webinar series. This one, there's some polls you can set up that are nice and interactive. Also another feature that's not possible on, you know, just straight from Instagram or straight from Facebook. And of course, all the email settings for the reminders. Those are all kind of a step up for that. So again, practice run a couple minutes before you go live. Even for this webinar today, Dawn and I log on up to 5-10 minutes early just to make sure everything's working correctly. That should always be a rule of thumb. You want to also look at your lighting, your sound, your background, and your video. I've seen a couple webinars lately where I feel like the person didn't even think about what was maybe behind them on the screen. Yesterday I watched one from a very prestigious speaker, and he was in a room and behind him was a closet, and the closet door was open and the closet was a mess. I mean, it blew my mind that he didn't just think, let's close the closet door so that everyone isn't staring into my closet while I'm speaking. So, I think just make sure you think of those things. Natural lighting is always best if possible. I am sitting in front of a window right now. I can't see how I look, but trying to use some natural light. Of course, you're going to go live. Once you go live, just like Dawn did for you guys, you want to give a quick tutorial or a guide to tell people kind of how it works and where to submit questions and what to do. And then, like I was mentioning before, you can stream live on Facebook and on YouTube directly from Zoom. I think it's nice if you can have a host to kind of moderate for you, welcome people, and filter the Q&A, similar to what Dawn's doing right now. This could be someone from your office manager, one of your MAs, someone that's bubbly and comfortable being on camera and kind of doing things on the spot. You also, of course, can hire someone to do this. For some of our clients, we are even doing this for them. So I think it's anywhere in between, but you definitely want to have a host. You don't want to be just having the practitioner be the only one there. And I think a good ratio is if you have maybe half of your webinar for a presentation where you'll show some slides with some information, with some before and afters, with a video, with some graphs, whatever it might be. And then you leave time at the end for questions and answers, because it is actually interactive. If it's only a presentation solely, then it doesn't really need to be live. It doesn't really need to be, a webinar series. It could be just a recorded video that you put out. So I think that's something to think about. If it is actually live, you want to utilize as much of the live interaction as you can. I know I just touched my face. And then, of course, if you can run some of these polls during the webinar, that's also helpful for engagement and to utilize, the more people can interact, the better. And you want to actively monitor and respond to the chats, which is what we're trying to do right now, but make sure you keep an eye on those. And with that in mind, is there any more in there for me yet?
Not so far.
Okay. So now, how about the follow through with your webinar series? You definitely need to push for your reach, and it's far beyond just the initial webinar. When you're done, you want to share the recordings in email and on social media. You want to add those recordings to your websites, the video gallery, the corresponding procedure pages. I think it's a great idea to call or email each attendee, thank them for coming, ask them for any feedback. This isn't really the appropriate time to push hard for sales or to close a deal with them, but I think starting a conversation and a dialogue will go a long way when it does become more appropriate, hopefully in the next couple of weeks or the next month or two, for you to actually kind of start, we know you tuned in for this webinar series, now we're back open again, would you like to come back in, and so forth. And you need to track your ROI. So how are you going to do this? Well, you're going to download an attendee list from every webinar, and then you're going to cross-match them in your system so that you can see if they actually come in for a consultation, virtual consult, in person, and if they book a treatment, so that you can actually see, what the return on investment was for this marketing initiative. So a couple special considerations. You want to make sure that these webinars are focusing on providing education, information, and support only. If they seem too promotional, if you're like, come to this register and get signed up for a discount or for this, or we're going to raffle off. Raffles may or may not be appropriate, but I think right now just focusing on education and information is absolutely the high road that we should all be taking. So don't push for sales or products too much. Consider if the content or subject matter will be relevant post COVID-19. For example, are we talking about just ways to keep our hands moisturized because we're washing them so much? That, I guess could be disputed, but hopefully that will not be something that's on the top of our minds for the rest of our life. Whereas if you're doing a webinar just on, the latest in lip injections and lip fillers, that's of course something that will be relevant for the long run and great for your website. And then, normally when we do in-office events, we get a lot of support from the sales reps, from the different pharmaceutical companies. They'll come in, they'll bring, food and drinks and support, and they might even help to kind of host and provide some of the marketing support. So this, how do we utilize a sales rep to support this? In truth, I'm not exactly sure yet. I think that's still a little bit something to be figured out, but I think they definitely can still help provide some feedback about the timing, to email, to get registrants, what to say before, what to say afterwards, giving you feedback on your presentation, giving you visual aids to use during a presentation. So I think that all of those are, are something worth discussing with your sales reps about. So, any more questions about webinars?
Not so far.
All right. All right, how are we on time? We are good. I will try and finish this up quickly to leave some time for questions. So the subscription and membership service, this is kind of like a 2.0 more long-term strategy revenue stream, but I want to show you quickly. And this is basically a monthly fee for providing some sort of valuable service. It could be a unique content that you're providing, maybe checklists, cheat sheets, discounts on products or services, special access to practitioners, access to a private online support group or just group, maybe removed or reduced fees like parking fees or shipping, priority scheduling, reduced wait time, whatever it is, you need to add extra value to encourage people to become a member. Some of you may already have something similar to provide a discount on your services. This would be taking it to the next level. So it's not only something for treatments and services, but it's also something for content, and as a support system while we are all staying home. So this is an example outside of dermatology space. If you want to check out this website, The Fasting Method, I think they do a great job. And just for example, they charge $40 a month. So if you did $40 a month, you get 500 patients to sign up. That's a good, little chunk of money. If you charge $99 a month, the numbers can start growing. This fasting method, he is a bariatric surgeon, and he launched in October, I believe, and he already has 9,000 subscribers. So why don't you calculate $40 a month times 9,000 people? It's pretty impressive. It's actually very impressive. So some considerations, how would you track this inside of your practice management or EMR software? Because they do need to be integrated. Do you have the capabilities and the technology to set up an automated monthly payment processing system? How are you going to continue to create and distribute new content? If people are going to pay to be members, you of course have to provide an ongoing stream of new content. Are you going to offer a free trial period? Can they cancel? If they pay for a year in advance, like here, do they get a little savings? Whatever it is, these are all special things to consider. And then there's affiliate marketing, which I'll go through real quickly. But basically, this would be, would patients, do they want to, resell some skincare that you have? Maybe they're on with their own teams, with their own home or virtual parties. If they refer people to a membership, is there something that they could get back? How about influencers? Influencer marketing is very similar. Slide about membership programs one more time. Yes, I can. Here it is. Is that helpful? This will also be recorded and sent out to everyone. Don't forget.
The one right before that one, Risa.
Oh, the one right before that. That one. There we go. Take your screenshots. Okay, so to go back to the affiliate marketing, real quickly, I want to talk about website updates so we have a little bit of time for questions. So website updates, of course, you need to make sure that your new services and offerings are highlighted at the top. For an example, on this website, you need to make sure the verbiage is updated throughout. Should it still say make an appointment, or should it say schedule a virtual visit? How about the call to action buttons? You know, what should those say? Should there be a pop-up on your website or a site-wide banner like this to tell people about what you're doing right now? And then how about online scheduling? Setting up online scheduling is already a great thing to do, COVID-19 or not. But if you haven't already, it's definitely a good time. You want to make sure that whichever one you pick is going to sync with your practice management software. You want to, if you do charge for consultations, or if you're going to offer online scheduling for appointments, you want to make sure that it can collect payment up front if that is something that you do in your office. I think a lot of people are a little nervous about online scheduling and that they feel like it might mess up their system. So I always think a good way to start is just start with consultations. You don't need to start with treatments right away. Plus, right now, we're only offering consultations, so it's perfect. And then as you get more comfortable with it, you could add on maybe Botox next. Okay, someone else is asking for the previous slide. So there's one more time. All right, you want to make sure that it's branded and customized as much as the software will allow. You want to make sure that you've worked on the auto reply and the confirmation message that's going to go out after they schedule something. And as always, you need to be tracking the ROI. Are the patients that are scheduling online as high quality as the ones that are scheduling on the phone? Is the no-show rate different? The cancellation rate different? The age group different? You know, the more you know, the more that you can adapt and adjust your strategies to provide the best bang for your buck. And a few pro tips. I would also, right now, I mentioned this last time and I know it was helpful for a lot of people. So just a few little tips. Ask your staff to help write some new blogs for your website, updating and expanding your website content, and recording new videos. All of these will help support SEO and lead generation. So they are revenue building activities. They are long-term strategies because they don't build revenue right now, but they are definitely helpful for the long run. And then you got to get the word out. So send out mass emails or texts to inform patients of the updates as well and direct them to your website for more information. So, although chaos and disruption can lead to innovation, or it can lead to innovation, not only is it refreshing to focus on these positives, but it will likely improve your business for the long run. So this completes our webinar for today. Next week, I will be back speaking on Thursday again about the tactical marketing information you need to recover. How are you going to return to business as usual stronger and more profitable before? What are you going to keep that you're innovating right now? And what opportunities are going to be available for you? And here is my name and email again. And now I'm glad I saved a couple minutes for some questions, so I hope a few of you have some.
We'll give them just a few moments to type them in. You've been answering everything that's come in so far, so we're doing there.
Okay. Well, overall, if you, if you didn't, or if you don't want to ask live, I guess I can just leave you on this slide again with my email. I'm happy to help right now. I have a lot of resources at my fingertips that I'd be happy to, email or forward or share what I'm doing if it can help any of you. I know this is difficult for all of us right now, and this, constant change and innovation it's overwhelming for sure.
I have not received any more questions at this point, so I want to say thank you again so much, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar, Marketing Tactical Information You Need to Sustain. If you have any other questions, please contact ASDS education staff at education@asds.net. On behalf of ASDS and our presenters, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Risa. We'll talk to you again next week.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe.